Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Arwin, Neil, 10th Man, Brian's Logic, and the Adam Meakin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Did I hear Chocolate's voice? I didn't. Oh, sorry, I missed the Chocolate.
That's all right.
Good to have you all the same. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline?
Possible.
No, not even from naval captains.
That question kind of goes to put when you say angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the anti-flat earthers and globers alike don't seem to be getting this fact because they still seem to be coming to me and quoting globe aspects that require flat earth to get to them. As an example, I get a comment today, I respond to it, point out that an elevation angle measurement's only going to work on a flat earth, and that was on the video where Toon's detailing it, working on a flat plane, and the guy explains to me, from my latitude at 45 degrees south of celestial pole is 45 degrees, due south, works perfectly on a rotating globe. My reply, you'll need a flat plane to measure that 45 degrees, that's two straight lines, you can't get that angle from a curve. But yet they're still coming and blarting curve angles at me, like it's going to somehow save their globe. No, you'll need a flat plane for that. What part of this aren't you getting?
Yeah,
Part that they need to get. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Go on, sorry, I'll go after.
I was just going to say, they're not getting the part they need to get, that's for sure.
What, the angle? Yeah, you won't get that from a sphere. You'll need a flat plane for that.
But Neil was saying like that they need to get the part that they need require a flat earth. That's the part they need to get, isn't that right, Neil?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get your latitude without your altitude. You need to do an elevation angle to a celestial body to get your altitude. Can't do that with a curved surface.
Right.
So you can't gain latitude without a flat plane.
Yeah, elevation angle measurement proves the Earth is flat. You can only acquire that measurement used in navigation from a flat Earth. It is game over, and as discussed in the pre-show, when people like Zanuck come along and tell us, well, first I'm going to measure it flat, and then I'm going to violate the angle I've measured, making it spherical, to then move forward with my claim, and everyone says, how shocking, that's game over. Well, yes, it is, but it's also simultaneously what they've done all along. A la Red's rhetoric, taking an elevation angle and then inserting R back in 2015. Well, did anybody say, hang on a second, by inserting R, you're bending the angle you've just measured. That violates the premise that you're using to make this claim with. Ergo, your starting point's measuring a flat Earth. So you've got to measure a flat Earth to make this claim. So all of your claims are based on a flat Earth as it transpires. Whenever you talk about angles on the globe side, you're talking about flat Earth. There is no two ways about that.
Yeah, but Nathan, in case somebody's just listening, they say that celestial navigation has been used for hundreds and hundreds of years, but it's been used on a globe. Tell us how it works on a globe. How do they get it to work?
Well, first I measure an angle off a flat Earth.
How do they get that first?
We
they
measure
cut the Earth
two
in
straight
half, right?
lines. Can only be flat to do that, but after that I'll say it's a sphere, bending the line that was straight that I just measured.
Yeah, Neil, they were all, I told Tim and all these cronies, one by one, take your challenge, your sextant challenge, and go off and prove your globe and get the 3 Bitcoin. And they've all gone quiet since.
Now, I know I do a full-on intro and explain that you can click the link below to join the show. However, I'm going to reiterate this because I don't think people are fully aware, even though I say it day in, day out, every time we go live. In Discord, even if the show is full, there is a live stream queue. Any member of the viewing public can join this show to tell us just how wrong we are about how flat Earth must be in order to measure an angle, and how those angles are used throughout your globe faith. You can come in and tell us we're wrong. There it is, the door's open, links below. We'll move you into the live stream if the show is full, i.e. there's a limited amount of space in the live stream chat itself. And you can be moved in. We can extend that to fit you in if you want to disagree with us. Just want to make that absolutely clear that this is an open door public show that anybody watching live right now can join.
And what a unique experience that is, Nathan, that you provide that for the people to come. They can come interact with you. They can watch your videos on YouTube, and they can come and actually interact with you and talk to you. It's the age we live in nowadays. It's awesome.
It is. It's fantastic. The technology level, I used to go on about this back in the day when I started doing live stream. It is amazing. But just for the audience's example, Whiskey Shaman's just moved into live stream queue, and now he's part of the show. When you do join, typically, unless you're a regular, you'll be on mute until somebody takes you off mute, so that you don't come in purely to disturb the flow of conversation that might be taking place at that particular moment when you join. But that is it. It is that simple. You can just join the Discord server and tell us what's what. Point out how wrong we are in this technical marvel we call the internet. Moving on. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth? Please share the show, by the way.
No.
Would that be the one that we would expect to see, or the one that we don't expect to see?
We only have one horizon, and the horizon in the Begging the Question, Proof of Nothing, Perspective Hijacking Earth Curve Calculator was a physical geometric sphere-edge obstruction that was claimed to block boats and buildings. In reality, we only have the horizon we see, and that is not a physical location, a hill blocking boats and buildings in the distance, because it moves with the bloody weather.
Nathan, how about when they say if the Earth was flat, there would be no horizon?
That comes from the assertion that when taking your perspective view, which is you seeing things in the distance recede in size, and then turn it side on 90 degrees into what is known as an orthographic representation, you see both your target and the side of your head in equal proportion, and you can ascribe an actual size to the target. That would be a 100-feet building, and then you can draw a line from one to the other, that's you, the observer, and the target, and write whatever distance you like on that line. Let's call it 1 million miles. And at 1 million miles, if there's merely a straight line between target and observer, the assertion can be made that that is a flat Earth representation, and there's no obstruction blocking your view of the 100-foot building at 1 million miles, therefore you should be able to see it. And then they bend the line the ground is actually being formed of in orthographic representation. Bending the line and putting the target behind the bent line when you see the side of your own head. An assertion is then made that the only reason the target at 100 feet is missing or cropped by 50 feet is because the bent line in orthographic view, known as Earth curve bulge obstruction, is getting in the way. Ignoring all aspects of perspective, that is to say that things get smaller into the distance. At 1 million miles, the angular size, there's that angle word again, right, lads? Would be too small to see. Unresolvable. But they would say, oh, no, look, you draw a straight line between them and put 1 million miles on them, you can still draw a line between them, there's nothing getting in the way, you should see it. That's idiotic and ignores perspective.
Yep, but still, the curvature calculator never accounted for terrestrial refraction, though, because it wasn't thought of yet.
Well, no, there is a terrestrial account, a terrestrial refraction that would be 7/6 of Earth radius and absolutely devoid of any connection whatsoever to actual refraction claim in the Earth maths, in the Earth curve maths. But that isn't
Is it?
refraction, number one, as stated. And number two, doesn't refract the horizon that's being used as a blockage, claimed to be Earth curve, being proven in that maths when they refract the targets.
Well, actual refraction doesn't do that, of course, but terrestrial
no.
refraction would do that. So they say, and they conjured it up. So yeah, who are we to say it can't do that because it's a conjured up thing? But I'm pretty sure that the curvature calculator did not take it into account.
Who am I? Oh, I'll be the one to say that you haven't got sphere-shaped air. Atmospheric sphere-shaped air refraction is an oxymoron. It relies on the premise that air takes the shape of a sphere. I'll be the one to say that's nonsense. No worries there, Arwin.
That was not my point. But the thing is that their terrestrial refraction was not incorporated in the curvature calculator. It never was. Right?
Not in the...
It was the go-to excuse if the curvature calculator didn't yield their desired amount of apparent curvature through the assumption that the horizon is geometric in that time, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yes, that's
correct. But
correct.
it's not in there. It's not part of the calculation.
No, that's correct. It can't be because it bastardizes the entire premise of the calculation, which is the assertion that there's a geometric physical sphere edge obstruction known as Earth curve blocking your view of the target. Now, if that doesn't correlate with the physical geometry that's being asserted in the geometric calculation, then they'll refract the target. Arwin's point is, well, there's no refraction included in the actual geometric mathematics, and he's right. There can't be. They're geometric.
Yeah, and then the whole autographic view on a ball system wouldn't work anymore, right? It wouldn't. You can't also include terrestrial refraction within that representation because it just wouldn't make any sense anymore.
Spot on, indeed. Smash the share button, everyone who's watching. Almost up to 100 viewers already, which is fantastic. 12 minutes into a live show. But yeah, I can tell this is going to be a hyper-condensed, flat Earth proofy type of show. So please share it. Hopefully there'll be a lot more, unless it dies on its ass at this point and the information all dries up. Let's hope not.
Listen, I gotta interrupt for one thing. Richie Ruggs in chat says, Earth is round, but the ground is flat.
Welcome to Flat
done,
Earth.
Richie.
While we don't ascribe a shape to the ground, i.e. aspects like the flatness that Richie Ruggs now concedes to would merely get you a welcoming to Flat Earth. The shape, yeah, feel free to describe that flat plane as a circle. We will belittle you for your assumptions that you cannot validate. Flat absolutely can be validated. You can't get an elevation angle unless it's a flat plane. Welcome to Flat Earth, Richie Ruggs.
It's locally flat. It's locally flat and globally spherical.
No, definitely not. Globally spherical would need to violate the celestial sphere model. Am I right? Oh, John's not around.
Richie Rich was is suggesting locally flat, globally spherical. That's what he thought.
It's a contradiction in terms. There is no locally flat on a sphere.
I just want to say Arwin was right. They hand you a geometric representation, and it's normally it's going to be orthographic, right? And then they don't tell you about refraction. They allow you to have this geometric representation, either as a globe, physical globe ornament in a classroom, or as a 2D diagram. And they allow you to have this for years before they ever start telling you about refraction. So they don't start adding in how refraction is involved in their model, right? Until you're well and truly believing in this geometric thing that they gave you for years. So when they start telling you about boats going over the horizon, it's long before they ever tell you about refraction. You don't even know that inferior mirage exists, for instance. You don't know nothing about that. All you know is that boats go over the horizon because that's what they told you in school. And that's what they tell you on TV. But
Right, and
the news
that's shown by when you have a National Geographic version of the boat going over the horizon in an orthographic representation with a little pirate on the left and a little battleship on the right. And it shows all of that with straight line geometry as per the original assertion of the geometry in Earth curve mathematics. So that's depicted without refraction. And as Brian says, and this is Arwin's point, and he's correct, and I did agree with him, they offer you up geometry. because that's what it is. That's what they're claiming. This refraction is offered up after it fails in its geometric assertions, and they refract the targets to do so. Now, that was as far as we got up till 2017, when we debunked it based on its orthographic representation and perspective omission, in fact hijacking. But we never pointed out that the geometry itself can't be violated. That's set in stone. It's a physical rock and a hill getting in the way according to the claim, until they refract it, and then suddenly you haven't got an Earth curve horizon to claim anymore. But that's 2 steps after they've refracted the target.
God, has it been 5 years already?
Nuts, isn't it?
2017?
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? How long it's been? 7 years.
It feels like 2 years ago still, but man.
Arwin and I started at almost the exact same time. So Arwin and I specifically have been doing this for over 7 years. It's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
First wave.
A couple more years and we'll be, slightly more frail in our voice. We both had a lot more hair when we started, didn't we, Arwin?
What? Speak for yourself.
I started in 2017 as well. I also started, 2015. I also started in 2015.
No, I wasn't saying you didn't. Check you out. I started
That
then
was
too.
almost as bad as Arwin when we weren't included in the first wave. That protest.
I'm a first waver.
I'm a first waver.
None of us are first waivers. So that's how
No, I'm a 1.5 waiver. I'm a 1.5 waiver.
Paul is ahead of all of you.
Look, I've asked people to share, and we're up to over 100 people, quarter of an hour in, just over. So let's keep it nice and concise. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Ask the people that do celestial navigation. They go to the center of the Earth.
No, they don't. They measure an angle off a flat plane.
Oh, dear.
Right. They just... Oh, did anybody watch that video? Who posted that again? Was it Adam that linked up to it? This old clip where they basically go through every step of celestial navigation with the sextant, and then they show you an orthographic diagram as like, oh, you have to compare the angles of your flat plane readout and then go to the center of the Earth and then compare the angles, and then they calculate how it all works.
Is that the last link in the war room, Adam?
Could be.
No, it's the one that I posted that's just above it with a love heart and thumbs up is the sextant one. The other one is Sir Patrick Moore making the statement that...
As you can see...
Sorry.
No, sorry. He's making a statement with regards to flat Earth. So I think Michael Parkinson's saying to him, what about these daft flat earthers? He says, well, what's daft about it? Can you disprove it? I found quite...
Oh.
interesting.
Well, I'm on the Patrick Moore one.
Cool.
Is the one that with Patrick Moore, Howes and Wise, is that something I should be sharing with the live stream chat?
Yeah, put it out to them. I'll stick them both in there if you wish.
Well, I'll scrub through it as you guys are talking just to see what he's, roughly what the content's like.
Well, I watched that video and it was really cool also because you literally get a practical demonstration in physical world
From
as
Patrick
to how
Moore, no
to do
less.
it.
Cool.
That's pretty badass. But it's just really, funny.
I'm sorry, Arwin, I'm sorry.
I just thought it was really funny that he basically goes to that diagram, then shows you like this is the readout of your position, and literally even draws it on a flat plane, and then the dingleberry underneath there, and then you have to calculate how it is on the globe, right? Like an extra. But he could have just completely left that out, and it would have still worked.
Well, the angles are and from a plane, and then they want to make these angles from a sphere, so they have to be transferred with some modification from the plane to sphere, and that's when they draw the dingleberry Earth and give you two tangent planes. One is the equatorial plane, and the other one is underneath the observer. So,
got that on screen now. So you've got your dingleberry Earth as we describe it below the tangent plane. So this is where you're taking your actual measurement from, and this is where you're getting your angle. And in terms of how you can map this out with the GP below, that requires no transitional work to be done whatsoever. It can just work off the flat plane, and that's how it does work. You're drawing circles of equal elevation. But when it's being described in this Patrick Moore video, they've got the same angle being measured off a flat plane. There it is, drawn with the dingleberry below. But then they say, well, all light comes in parallel, so technically the angle you've measured from the surface actually corresponds with an angle that runs to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. So we'll take it as read, right? We're all good. This angle's actually being measured from the centre of a sphere. We all cool with that? Right. Now the angle that you measured and the technical protractor that could be drawn out over the top of the flat plane you originally measured it from, that curve just becomes the curve of the arc of the ground that you're no longer standing on and measuring, because the measurement's coming from the centre, because all the light's running parallel. We all clear? Is that clear as mud? Because none of it's necessary. You just measure an angle and draw a GP to a flat baseline. None of this is actually done in celestial navigation. It's done after the fact being an angle measured from a plane, drawn out here with a straight line.
By the way,
Right, sorry. But I just wanted to say it also makes sense in that era, right? Because in that time,
there's no
Renaissance. In the Renaissance, it's not like there was just paper lying everywhere. You could just get cheap paper for like a couple of cents. That was not the case. Paper was kind of expensive and rare, and sometimes it was even just still parchment, right? So it's not like, oh, quickly, let's calculate this on paper. We have to do it with the dingleberry Earth. No, you didn't need to use paper. You just needed to have the right data available to you on paper and a map, and that's it. You didn't have to put drawings on math to calculate anything. You didn't need that. You just needed the instrument and the maps, and that's all.
Have a little here.
No obvious standard of reference. We measure our latitude from the equator, which is midway between the two poles, but there's no definite line for longitude. And the one that's been selected is the line on the Earth's surface running through both poles and Greenwich Observatory.
So he's describing that transposition where you draw out an equatorial plane at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. So, yeah, obviously this guy's an astronomer, so he's going to want to promote the heliocentric narrative and describe how you take a measurement from a flat plane and then move it to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, invalidating the original measurement taken off the plane. Very interesting. What was the other video, Adam? Is Adam still there?
I'm just lining it up. I think it's a 3-minute video, and I've got the 30 seconds of clip that might be worth hearing.
Yeah, I'll risk it.
It's really good. I'll screen share. Well, if you've got it, it's probably easier for you. But if you go to 1 minute and just play it for the 30 seconds, he discusses Copernicus and then goes on to mention critical thinkers like flat earthers.
Say from the 1 minute mark.
1 minute mark, yeah.
And Copernicus said the Earth doesn't, the sun does not go around the Earth goes around the sun. And everyone said he was a crank. But of course, the Earth does go around the sun, at least I think it does. How can one tell? Yes, I have every great sympathy for what I call the independent thinker.
Just checking this is the right section, right?
That's exactly it. The next bit coming up is the pertinent bit. Yeah.
Okay.
And I say I would hate to see them vanish from the Earth. Oh, the flat earthers, the hollow globers, the coal sunners, the astrologers, the flying sorcerers. I think it's a jolly good thing.
But Patrick, the fact of the matter is that the Earth is not flat.
How do you know? Can you prove to me that the Earth is not flat? Go on, try it. I challenge you. Prove to me that the Earth is not flat.
Well, I'll tell you what, mate, if it's flat, an awful lot of people have been wrong for an awful long time.
Ain't that the truth?
That's brilliant.
I like that.
Excellent.
I love it.
Can I just throw something at you, a piece of history that you're not aware of?
As long as it's concise. Go ahead.
It is. No, you go ahead. I'll say it afterwards.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
It's over there.
Okay, I'll be concise. Right. Sir Patrick Moore, right, went to a meeting held by a guy called Samuel Shelton back in, I think it was the 60s. Samuel Shelton was the precursor, let's just say, to a man called Charles K. Johnson. Charles K. Johnson was the last president of the International Flat Earth Research Society. He was from Texas, and he died in 2001, right? Now, his story is a different story, but the man that was the president prior to him, who handed the presidency over to him, was Samuel Shelton. And Samuel Shelton invited Patrick Moore, or Patrick Moore came to one of his flat out meetings. And Patrick Moore said, "This is extremely interesting."
Well, thank you for that.
Patrick Moore had already interacted with flat earth.
Just on Patrick Moore, you know how we get attacked for you've not got qualifications in this, that, and the other. But I was just reading there. So the most famous astronomer, as far as I'm aware, was actually an amateur. He was a professional xylophone player and registered actor, but he wasn't anything other than an amateur astronomer. Yet he's the most knowledgeable person I've ever known in that field. It's an interesting point with regards to what a qualification's really worth.
You like Patrick Moore? Do you watch this? I used to love watching The Sky at Night with Patrick Moore.
And Games Master.
And Games Master to a degree, but yes, that's him as a sort of semi-digitized computer game.
Back in the old days, that was one of the things that was intelligent on TV. You had to wait till 11 o'clock, stay up late as a kid to watch stuff like that, because it was just information, data. I mean, admittedly now incorrect, but it was one of the few things.
Did you not get free Open University?
Yeah, so you'd be watching that as well.
Yeah, that's what I watched, because I still am. I say I was, past tense. I'm an insomniac. And I remember my dad once showing me that you could record, because he was doing an OU course at the time, OU courses from BBC Two at 3 a.m. So I'm like, well, how does that work? Because I obviously envisaged it, pictured it being really complicated and you're having this scrambled code. And it was like, you just put it in and record at a certain time. You set the timer. I'm like, is that it? So it's just broadcast then at a time that most people are in bed. And I was like, I'm not in bed at 3 a.m. I'll watch. Wonderful. You got free university material through broadcast TV at 3 a.m. if you were so inclined to sit up. Now, I had a TV in my bedroom. I certainly did have a VCR when I was very young. But it was fantastic. And like you say, you stayed up. If you were lucky, you watched whatever was on with your folks before they went to bed. And then it was The Sky at Night and then Open University. Wonderful.
Not us. In Brooklyn as a kid at 11 o'clock, Benny Hill was on.
Benny Hill for you, The Sky at Night and Open University for me. How different.
Correct. We were Catholic school boys, so that was like gold to us.
I just want to pat you on the head right now.
I didn't know it at the time, but now I do feel quite privileged for having been privy to that. If I hadn't found that information out, I'd have just tossed and turned all night and not had anything to consume my obviously over-enthusiastic brain at the time, which needed information. And it got it from Open University because it was free. Essentially, anybody could have it. Now, most people would set the timer for the specific course that they were sitting in, right? And they just played one course after the next at certain times, certain sections of the course. So unless you were keeping up with it, there's a good chance a lot of it would go over your head because you'd missed the first section of that course. But that didn't matter to me. Anyway,
can I ask Ryan, Adam a question about qualifications? Adam,
I sell propane and propane. That's what I'm saying.
Qualifications.
Make fun of me.
Have people with qualifications ever been wrong, or also have people with qualifications have ever lied?
That's an outrageous question. Everyone with qualifications is always right. Science. Hello.
I rest my case.
Sorry, Adam was asked.
If medics didn't have disagreements, which we do, so which medic's right? This is not science, medicine, certainly. Most things aren't. In science, it's quite clear, isn't it? There isn't a right and wrong. There's either a proof or a disproof. But whereas when you go into areas like medicine and all these things, then opinion, because it's not it's not cause and effect. It's correlation. Certainly, medicine is probabilities, correlations, and best guess.
Is that why it's called medical practice?
Yeah.
So when John tried to set up a debate at Jim Panda's, and they ran away, it seems like, his qualifications probably came into somewhat of a discussion, I'm sure, or
Really?
would have.
Why?
Or would have, let me finish, if the debate was scheduled. Well, who are you and what's your qualifications? I'm just playing out something that won't happen because they declined the debate. I'm just trying to narrow down on this qualification thing. Because, when someone has authority over you, it's usually because they're smarter than you, or I'm not talking in the home with your father or mother. I'm just talking authority in general. And so they're qualified, so they're deemed to be respected. But then when they say something that's blatantly wrong, and someone without the qualification says, I don't see how that works out in reality. Again, back to my teacher in school, when I challenged all this stuff, he said, I don't even believe it, but I got to teach it. Now, see, he had qualifications as a teacher, and he was teaching something he didn't believe. This is my point.
I'm pretty sure it's a true story about, the film is called Lorenzo's Oil, which some of you may be familiar with. And the father of a child that's got a very debilitating illness is arguing with the doctors. And they're pulling that card on him. Who are you to argue with us? We're the professionals. We're qualified. You're just a schmo. Don't challenge us. And his attitude is, I will challenge you because I'm out there doing the research and trying to figure out what's what. And I'm going to offer up everything I know to you, and I expect you to do something with it. And it doesn't matter that I'm not qualified. Now, through his hard work, in the story at least, he manages to figure out the cause of the effect. Now, whether or not it's scientifically validated, I don't know. I didn't look into the finer details of the story, heartwarming though it was. My point is not that it's been scientifically validated, it's more that the question of the man's arrogance comes up in the story. And he defines the term in terms of its etymology, and to challenge is part of that. Now, just because the doctors have trained and are qualified and have a set, number of protocols to go through with his particular patient, that's just a number to the doctor, although the doctor very much stresses that that's not the case, and he's got just as much love and sympathy for another man's son, total nonsense, as the man who's insisting that he should be looking into something different. Now, the qualifications at that particular stage are irrelevant. It's only who's got the actual verified, validated information that's relevant, not the qualifications. But we deal with this regularly. It's not something that's come up recently.
This, just to put it, if I've got two pharmacists and people say one's better than the other, they've both got the same qualification. So what is the differentiator between them? What makes that one better than that one? It's their knowledge base. But the qualification in and of itself is kind of irrelevant to the practice. It's what enables the best practitioner is their knowledge base. So technically the qualification per se is irrelevant without the knowledge. So the thing that is the most important thing is the knowledge, and that's why I brought Patrick Moore, the most knowledgeable person on astronomy. Yet he's an amateur. He wasn't a university graduate on it. Yeah, he might have been given posthumous stuff, but fundamentally he acquired that knowledge himself, and that set him above everybody else who had the qualifications. Why was he better? Because his knowledge base was better.
Yeah, fascinating watching him
may
holding
I
a
briefly?
sextant. Yeah, go on, Whiskey Shaman.
So this is a topic that was actually brought up in a recent Ballbusters episode, which covered the various fallacies utilized in various arguments. And in it was maintained that the appeal to authority fallacy was only ever fallacious when it appealed to a sort of unjustified authority.
False authority, yeah.
Yeah, so I've taken contention with that definition ever since it was brought up because I hope the nested recursive logical regress is obvious, but you would need an authority on who was authoritative before you could ever truly or falsely appeal to an authority. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's down to defining terms when you classify something as an authority, and I would agree with you. Maybe we can get into this after the next housekeeping question, just because I've spotted what Sleeping Warrior's got on his screen. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? We will come back to that, Whiskey Shaman.
Well, would you mind presenting my screen, Nathan?
Certainly.
So, we've all seen this National Geographic Coriolis video. I'm not going to play through it, you don't need to see it, but we've missed a trick on our side. Because when we have the rotating, I mean, I'll just play it for a second while you can see what this girl does. She's aiming for the bloke sat opposite, right? But when she throws the ball, it peels off to the guy to the right. They never show this video or any Coriolis video when the person is aiming to the person at the adjacent side. It's always to the person opposite. With respect to the Earth, this would be the flight's north and south because it's 90 degrees to the rate of rotation, the direction of the rotation. So if this is the north and south, yeah, they can make adjustments to the plane, the flight path of the plane to account for this, because that's what Wolfie does. Wolfie says that planes make lots of micro adjustments so that they arrive at their destination, and Coriolis can be negated with lots of micro adjustments. That's true. But if you turn the conversation on its side and talk about either of the two directions there, in this instance, the rotation, obviously this guy receives the ball as the ball bends round. If this person here was to turn to the right and throw the ball to him, or turn to the left and throw the ball to him, going one way, the ball is going to appear to like almost hover in the air, and the rotation of the thing will bring the guy towards the ball. But going the other way, it's going to appear to be twice as fast and twice as powerful, and he's going to be like, why did you throw it so hard? In real world, this is essentially the flight's east and the flight's west. They don't want to talk about this. All they want to talk about is the guy directly opposite and how flight paths can be adjusted for with micro adjustments. But if you get them to talk about the guy sat adjacent to them, whether it's like whether the platform is rotating towards the observer or against the observer, matters not. The effect is that flight paths on the Earth, if the Earth were turning, would have to get there quicker and slower because this video demonstrates it. They don't want to talk about the guy sat adjacent. They only want to talk about the guy opposite. So in future, guys, when you talk about Coriolis...
Hold on. We got all that. I know you're just going to paraphrase it again. So the bit that I found is absolutely correct, first of all. Yes, kudos. Thank you for doing that. The bit I found interesting was your reference to Wolfie. So correct me if I'm wrong in my summary of what you've just said. And it's hearsay, but it doesn't matter. We'll maybe get this verified. Wolfie has claimed that he corrects for Coriolis with micro adjustments. Is that an accurate statement or representation of Wolfie's position?
Sure, I can show you where he says it if you like.
Yes, please.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, please, Anthony.
I'll have stuff to say afterwards.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you have. Let's have a look. I just want to make sure I clarify what he's actually saying before I pull it apart.
How can you correct for something optical?
What did I just say, Neil?
Sorry.
So in this thread on Brian's Logic's video, perspective is not orthographic, I'm sorry. Wolfie, one day ago, starts a thread. And in this thread, Nathan starts off poking fun at Wolfie. And Wolfie starts to respond to me. And I have a really good back and forth with the guy. Unfortunately, I can't delete off all these other attacks from other people trying to distract away the conversation. But I do get a closure of the point with Wolfie. So if I scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see. So you agree that aircraft need to make regular small heading corrections to remain precisely on course. Good. Well, he's talking about the observer that sat opposite.
Don't tell me what he's talking about.
Mind
just read it.
I don't mind giving him everything that he says.
Just tell me what he says. I want to hear him say that he makes corrections on account of the Coriolis deflection. That's what I'm looking for.
The aircraft will drift if no corrections are made. We know aircraft need to make constant corrections. So are you talking about the pilot?
That's good enough.
Or the air?
No. Contextually, that's good enough for me. Leave it on screen, please. That's good enough. Drift, you say drift. Drift. What would that be? Coriolis drift. Contextually, we are definitely describing Coriolis deflection in this argument between Wolfie6020 and Sleeping Warrior. This is a I just need you to nod along, Anthony. This is a contextually argued about point. It is about Coriolis, correct?
Yeah.
And according to Wolfie's statement, they do have to account for drift in the aircraft, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Wolfie, you complete idiot. You do not understand what Coriolis effect is. Coriolis effect, that would be the drift you detailed in your comment, is an observation from the non-inertial turning reference frame. That would be to say that you see a ball travelling straight appear to drift if you're on a roundabout with a ball thrown over the top of it. Analogous to your aeroplane travelling straight and appearing to drift from the ground as you turn beneath it. That would be the Coriolis drift Earth is claimed to have. Like you standing on the ground and looking at the stars moving because it's claimed you're turning beneath them. So in your example, your plane is drifting from the ground, but not actually drifting in reality. So Wolfie thinks you have to account for drift observed from the ground that isn't really occurring. So, Wolfie, riddle me this. Do you get a call from ground control? Ground control to Wolfie Clown Show. There is a man observing you from a non-inertial turning reference frame. Please make micro-adjustments immediately. Do you get that call, do you, Wolfie, you stupid buffoon? No, you do not. Why don't you? Because it's not actual drift. Coriolis deflection is the not actual drift observed from the non-inertial turning reference frame. There is no accounting for drift in the projectile, which would be your little aeroplane, wouldn't it, Wolfie? You fundamentally do not understand Coriolis drift, you total moron. Thank you. I really enjoyed doing that.
My point was simple. My point was just getting to talk about the observer to the side, not the guy opposite, because you can give them the guy opposite because they've got an explanation for it. They can say that the plane makes adjustments.
Adjustments would be on your roundabout, if you want to bring it back up, Anthony. The frame of reference being filmed is the turning reference, so everybody on the reference stays the same as the camera position. It's the ball that's moving. Well, the ball that we see from the camera's position seems to curve. But in reality, it's only seeming to curve because your camera position is moving. The ball in reality is moving straight. Now, that is analogous to Wolfie's plane not drifting, moving straight. The only time it seems to drift is if you're observing it from the ground. Now, it's not really drifting, it just looks like it is. So what's he getting his micro-adjustments for, exactly? The not actual deflection observed from the ground? You're a thick idiot, Wolfie, and you do not understand Coriolis effect. I'm proud to tell you as a flat earther, to a pilot, no less, you don't understand Coriolis and you're being schooled by me. The drift is not actual. You're not going to be adjusting for a not actual drift observed from the ground, you idiot. You don't understand Coriolis, Wolfie. Thicko.
Optical, baby.
Not actual. Apparent drift. That's what Coriolis is. The ball, in Neil deGrasse Tyson's example, seems to drift through the goal because the goal moved under the ball. Earth's supposed to be turning under stuff. That's what Coriolis is. So Earth is claimed to turn under Wolfie's plane. And what's he going to say? Oh, well, I account for the Coriolis drift. Do you now? Given that it's accounted for from the ground as you observe something that's not drifting, look like it's drifting. Yeah, ground control to major idiot. You've got to account for a not actual drift you're not experiencing. Hello?
Yeah, but see, these are some of the tricks they used to use back in the day.
Well, there's a couple of problems there with what Wolfie's saying. First of all, I have to point out, even though I'll be unpopular, right, with Anthony, he's not actually specifically stating he's making corrections for Coriolis.
The drift.
He's making corrections, but he says he's making corrections for Earth rotation.
He said drift.
Does he say drift? He does.
Yeah, that's why I ripped him a new asshole. Because he said drift. Contextually, that's Coriolis deflection. We all know what drift is. What about drift as we watch the pendulum swing and knock over the dominoes? That's it drifting. Because Earth's claim to turn underneath it. Not actually moving anything other than back and forth. Just looks like it because you're standing on a rotating platform according to the claim. So according to the claim, the pendulum, quote unquote, drifts. Not really, just looks like. Apparent, not really. That's what they're claiming. That's Coriolis. That's drift. Yeah, Wolfie definitely said drift, and then had his ass ripped through his own throat by me, a flat earther, for his total lack of understanding of Coriolis deflection, observed only from a non-inertial reference frame. That would be his drift.
Okay, but the problem is...
Flat Earthers. Hold on a second. Flat Earthers listening out there over the past 5 minutes or so, that is the standard. What you just heard Nathan Oakley rip his asshole right through his throat, like he said, concisely, to the point. That's the standard. Can you do that? That's the question you have to ask yourself. If you can't, you shouldn't be out here.
Correct, but according to a Kumo virus, Nathan doesn't understand Coriolis.
Excellent rebuttal ad hominem fallacy.
I have a question about the football and the ball on the merry-go-round.
Also a baseless assertion disproved by the last 5 minutes of statements made by me about non-inertial and inertial reference frames and the observation from a non-inertial reference frame of a not actual deflection in the inertial reference frame. That would be a very concise one-breath rendition of the Coriolis effect, proving beyond all certitude that I absolutely know what I'm talking about.
That's roundabout thing. That is not...
Mass clown you. Hold on. Nathan, if you were here, fucking meritorious service, I'd decorate you myself.
Well, thank you. Go on, Brian. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for a start, that roundabout thing with the ball, that's not the Coriolis effect. The ball is attached to the roundabout. That's not the Coriolis effect, number one. Number two, Wolfie would claim that he's making adjustments for Earth rotation. He's avoiding the drift by making adjustments for Earth rotation, which would make him look stationary. But it doesn't matter. All that doesn't matter. Because if he is actually claiming this, and claiming these corrections, then that would, first of all, that would lengthen his journey with all these corrections. But secondly, and way more importantly, there should be data there to support his claim.
What do you mean the ball's attached? Hold on,
yeah, that's wrong.
attached.
Don't major on the minors. Yeah, that's a minor detail that Brian's not quite correct on, but it doesn't matter.
Well, no, I am. The ball is attached to the roundabout.
No, they throw it. No, they throw it.
Oh, I thought it was a different video where they roll it. I thought it was
no, they actually do toss it.
Okay, my fault.
No, that's okay. It's a minor point, but yes, I knew what you meant. It's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had the two videos mixed up. But the point is that for Wolfie's claim, then there should be data there to support this claim. The data he hasn't produced since 2016. Sorry, I'm gone.
Fundamentally, what Nathan's rebuttal is correct one, but he's desperate to prove that the Earth is rotating underneath it. So if that's the case, then, as you said, Brian, then there should be massive adjustments to flight times, flying east and west. That isn't the case. So whatever he's correcting for, got nothing to do, as demonstrated by Nathan, to do with Coriolis, and there isn't a difference in flight times to east and west. So the ground isn't moving in relation with a plane in any direction, it's static.
Spot on. And as much as I've just got a lot of credit from QE for my concise summary of Coriolis and his use of drift, and contextually incorrect as it might have been, Adam's point is much more ahead of the queue. Because, correct, what Adam's pointing out is that what Wolfie's actually fighting for is Earth turning underneath his aeroplane and him adjusting for that. Well, if he's adjusting for Earth turning underneath his aeroplane, he's adjusting for Earth turning underneath his aeroplane. So Earth turns underneath your aeroplane then, Wolfie. That shortened the flight time. Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take an hour and a half instead of about 5 hours, 4.5 hours. It doesn't, because Earth's not rotating underneath aeroplanes. But that's what he's fighting for, right, Adam?
Yeah. So I would be happy in a debate to go, okay, you're doing that drift. That means then the Earth is rotating, therefore demonstrate that in flight times. And as you say, he's desperately grabbing at something to try and make it mean something, even though he doesn't actually understand the actual definition.
Hold on. So when I fly my drone and I have it hovering, shouldn't the Earth be moving underneath it?
Hovering
Should I be able to land it right back down?
There would be no hovering. If Earth was exhibiting Coriolis effect, hovering would be a first law of thermodynamics violation, because you'd suddenly launch across the ground that's going to turn underneath, and it would track with a ground that it's left, at the rate the ground's tracking at. So you've suddenly got it increasing its velocity to match a ground that it's left. You're taking off a roundabout, jumping up and down, if you will, but your velocity increasing to match the ground that you've left. It's a first law of thermodynamics violation. So there would be no hovering. Everything would exhibit drift, exactly as they claim it does. It's just we don't see any. You can hover.
So hovering violates it.
Well, yeah. This is where you need QE to come back in, because they'll claim it takes off, but it's still actually moving lockstepedly, isn't it? Because of its...
So no drift then. So as soon as they say, oh, it's moving in lockstep, atmosphere moves along with the ground, well, then there's no inertial reference frame to claim it's drifting from.
Or you get QE to get them to admit that planes fly backwards.
Yes.
Yeah, but Wolfie is actually violating that claim by his claim. He's violating the official claim that their atmosphere rotates with their globe by saying he makes corrections. What corrections are you making then? Even though that whole claim of, besides how bizarre and ridiculous that claim is that air rotates with a rotating body, if that was happening, flights east and west would be still different. Because to fly from the east coast to the west coast of America, you still have to fly, if you're flying east to west, you still have to fly against the rotation. So that doesn't change anything for us, that. It's total nonsense. But Wolfie is in violation of his own claim, and that claim is total rubbish. But it doesn't matter. That's the official claim.
So you got a retard, right? Wolfie the retard, using his credentials as a pilot to deceive. Follow? You get that?
Is he a liar?
Yeah.
That's exactly what he's doing. He's using his credentials to deceive.
That's lying then.
Yeah.
The question was posed to QE.
Yes.
For a reason.
Yeah.
Did I hear yes? Did I hear yes? Bloody hippie conspiratard.
Yes.
Hey,
sorry, hold on. Hold on. Yeah, we will get to you, Whiskey Shaman. We will get to you. I haven't forgotten. Sorry.
Oh, I haven't forgotten either. We'll get back to him.
Hamlin's razor with Wolfie.
Yes, but it's in combination this time with lying. He's a retard. Make no mistake about that. I've dealt with his numptiness.
Fully qualified pilot. Fully qualified pilot.
Yes. Yes. So it's not an all or nothing thing, right? I mean,
hold on. You said he was...
It's not. It's not. Hold on. Listen, the majority are, as everyone knows, we can go through it again if you'd like, are abject retards. You're going to have few outliers. It's like a bell curve, right? You follow that?
So they're normally distributed, with the majority being just simply retarded in the middle. At one end, you've got intelligent liars, What's at the other end of that bell curve? At the bottom end.
Severe incapacitated retardedness.
Not much of a bell curve.
Not really.
Okay, fine. So which is it then? Is it malice or is it ignorance with Wolfie?
With Wolfie, it's both.
It's both. It's malice and ignorance. Okay.
Yes.
It would have to be somewhat both, right? Because this is somebody who supposedly has some type of qualifications in what we're talking about, right? But then when he's outright saying he's correcting for something that's literally an observation from the ground, and he knows he's not correcting for that, then yeah, that's a lie based on somebody who has qualifications, and he's lying.
Isn't it? Is that the lie?
Exactly. That's the.
Or is that the
already. Exactly. That's the question. Well, this man is definitely an authority in this, isn't he? Maybe we can move over to Whiskey Shaman's original question about appeal to authority fallacy.
Yeah, it fits right in, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was waiting for that segue.
So yeah, I mean, basically, problem with the appeal to authority as far as whether citing authorities preserve the truthfulness of claims is that it must already be the case that the thing that the cited authority claims is true in order that citing them is sufficient proof of a claim.
Yeah, your problem's not. Yeah, hold on. Your problem's not with the definition of appeal to authority fallacy. Your problem's with how you define an authority. That's a completely different matter.
Also, your issue is with citation itself. So your inference is that upon citation, you've proved your point, and any citation at face value is just a baseless assertion. So unless it's validated originally. So yeah, an authority can make a claim, but you offering it up as a claim merely by pure reason of authority just makes it a baseless assertion at face value.
Correct.
Doesn't mean it's an appeal to authority fallacy, though.
Correct.
Well, no, it would make it an appeal to authority fallacy because. Well, hold on.
Yeah, I'm not holding on. No, it wouldn't.
What is the purpose of citing an authority within
to support your claim?
Well, right, but typically, at least in this domain, one supports one's claim by showing that.
That's right. Correct. That support, that citation has to be demonstrated. How many times I got to say this over the past 5 years?
Not. If we respectfully, with regards to Wolfie and possibly the training and what he's told is why he's wiggling his stick a little bit. If within that training, it's claiming that that's the reason, it's not proving it, then it's surely an expert witness that's incorrect, making a baseless assertion because they teach it without base. Nothing to back it up.
But they don't teach it. That's the problem.
Well, that's what I'm asking. If in his training, when he says wiggle your stick a little bit, what you're doing here is adjusting for Coriolis, then it's not numptiness, is it? It's actually what.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is numptiness. That was what my entire shtick was about when I ranted at him for 5 straight minutes. To assert that Coriolis accounts can be made from the projectile's point of view is ludicrous and absurd and a very numpty thing to say, and demonstrates adequately that he doesn't understand what Coriolis is.
Let Adam finish.
Yeah. Hold on a second, Anthony. I think we're getting away from Whiskey Shaman's point. I guess we can get back to Wolfie here in a second. Whiskey Shaman, see, I didn't think about it like a citation. I thought about it like in a courtroom, and the prosecutor brought in a witness. They're face-to-face, right? What makes that person an authority? So your problem is with how do we justify whether this person is an expert or not, and this person's not. Follow?
Correct. Yep.
Yes. Not citation. That's a completely other. It's not. It's connected, but that's not how I thought about it. Follow?
Yeah, I follow, but what I'm saying is the essence of the appeal to authority fallacy, in my view, is that it is a sort of extrapolation from the genetic fallacy or an ad hom fallacy, in the sense that, we try to center the truthfulness of a claim from the specific viewpoint of the person to whom we are appealing for validation. And what I'm saying is, I haven't quite given this reasoning yet, but let me just give it right now, is that as soon as one delegates expertise to another person, one simultaneously delegates, or that is to say, abdicates the ability to sort between claims of contending experts. In other words, if you don't have sufficient knowledge or information to understand what an alleged expert is saying, you also lack the necessary judgment to know if the authority is speaking honestly or truthfully.
It's a different topic then that has nothing to do with an appeal to authority fallacy, like I said, that falls under what you consider an expert or not.
That was
Yeah, it's an issue of credibility, not an issue of content.
Correct. If we're talking about how planes fly, then surely that's an expert witness if you've got a pilot, and if he's also stating these books that include this.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't think most pilots understand how the plane flies. I think most pilots
come on, no, that's absurd. No, Adam, carry on. You were on the right lines. Go ahead.
If he's also then citing his reference training and he says it within that training as a validation, this is why we do this, and it's described as that, then actually you've got a numpty profession, haven't you, that's going on something that isn't backing itself up. So it's an unvalidated assumption from an expert witness. So you're taking apart an expert witness. There's no. So you, in a legal sense, that's what you do. You put your expert on the stage and you attack him and show that his expertise are incorrect.
Exactly.
Doesn't change the fact that you're discrediting an expert witness. It's just, I think we're quibbling over what is the standards we assign to an expert. And your point, Whiskey Shaman, is to say, well, unless you, the person who's either making the claim of an expert when citing it, or the person saying, no, that's an appeal to authority fallacy because that person's not an authority in this regard, it implies that you've got exclusive knowledge to all of their expertise. But while that might be true in some instances, for the most part, most people would accept at a, I don't know if you call it a Socratic level, that I can call Neil deGrasse Tyson an expert in his field and it would be universally accepted. Therefore, if talking about his claims of space, to refute them as a hostile witness, for example, nobody would claim an appeal to authority fallacy when I use him as that authority, regardless of how nonsensical his claims may or may not be. He just is the authority and that is accepted. But your standards argument, I can completely agree, because sometimes the lines get blurred and there's lots of grey area. Therefore, the fallacy falls in the same grey area. I think that's your point, right?
No, my point is that the appeal to authority fallacy is the case regardless of whether or not the two interlocutors agree or disagree on the expert status of the alleged authority. And the reason that I think that that's the case is because one necessarily cannot sort claims from experts or non-experts if one refers to expertise as the epistemological foundation of the truth value of claims.
But we're not. You don't ascribe the truth. You don't ascribe the truth value based on that citation, and in this case, the expert that has provided it. It's just used to support your overall argument. I mean, me personally, just to add an aside to this, I am lazy and I often don't cite anything. In other words, I will rely solely on my ability to argue the point, without any assistance from citations. Not necessarily for this reason, but partially.
Appeal to authority isn't necessarily about an authoritarian position.
Hold on.
It's about assigning
just let Arwen
to another individual.
Just one more time,
another
Arwen.
individual.
Everyone stop.
This
Everyone
is
stop. Just
simply
let Arwen get
adjudicated.
his statement out once uninterrupted, and then we'll move back to QE. Go ahead, Arwen.
Yes, just appeal to authority is not about any hierarchical thing you assign to an individual. It's about you assigning proof to another individual. It's basically, you could put your brother up, your big brother up to appeal to authority. It doesn't mean that he is an authority in the field. It's just that you regard him as such within the argument.
No, that's an appeal to authority fallacy. Go on, QE.
Right.
This can be easily adjudicated, right? The expert, the alleged expert, no matter who he is and what discipline that he's representing, the fact that he says something doesn't relieve him of the responsibility to demonstrate it.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, it's the fallacy part.
There's more to that. Just repeat that, please, QE, before it gets lost in a sea.
Yes, because we're talking, I think Whiskey Shaman, he's got a point. His point's valid. However, that expert that you're citing or is on the witness stand, just because he says something, that doesn't relieve him of the responsibility to demonstrate what his claim is.
And further to that, if he's not on the stand, that is to say, you cite George Musa as an individual, but he's not stood by you or metaphorically on the stand being grilled, that automatically becomes your claim. Doesn't matter that you've provided it via a citation and a so-called expert. Right or wrong, that claim becomes your claim. You have to then defend it and watch it fail on its arse if it fails, regardless of the expert standard you thought it had when you offered it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, we
and
agree,
so that's
seems.
why appealing to authority in a strict syllogistic sense is always fallacious, because if you are unable, if you are unable to perform the same demonstration that your called upon expert has perhaps maybe done in the past, you're just hinging your claim on thin air, because then it just becomes literal hearsay evidence.
Yes.
Correct. That's correct. But that's not an appeal to authority fallacy unless you can demonstrate that he's not a subject matter expert.
No, but here's the problem. Calling someone a subject matter expert doesn't make them such.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
that gets back to the initial point. Like I said, your argument is not with the appeal to authority fallacy. It is within the appeal to authority fallacy whether the subject matter expert is actually an expert. So we're circling back.
Spot on.
But by that same token, saying that somebody is not a subject matter expert doesn't make them not one.
Forget about this crap. You got problems with Coriolis. You got to hear the chat. What's going on with this Coriolis?
No, we don't. Hold on, Neil.
Hang on.
I'm geeking out here. This is fantastic, by the way. Just a second to take a moment to say thank you to QE and thank you to Whiskey Shaman, because I'm geeking out over here. I love talking about fallacy, so thank you very much. I've kept the live show going just for that. So while you say there's more important things, I don't see anything more important than dicing up the minutiae of a fallacy. Oh, it's very exciting.
Flat Earthers getting Coriolis wrong. Right in chat. Agreeing with Akuma. What's going on?
Yeah, it's
Akuma, get your ass in the Discord panel.
Let me answer Neil.
We have a question. Let's hear the question.
Let me answer Neil first. So Neil says, why is it that flat earthers are getting it wrong? Because it's shrouded in obfuscation and bullshit and doublespeak. And typically, when a flat earther is confronted with the alleged overcome to their argument that there isn't any drift, nothing's drifting, says flat earther, the response is, we wouldn't expect to see any drift from the then anti-flat earther, not Glober at that point. So the anti-flat earther says we wouldn't expect to. That confuses most flat earthers. It did me for many, many years. I hated that subject. Now I'm very good at it. I don't like it. It's not a favourite subject to discuss, but I do understand it. Most of our brethren in this community don't, and I totally empathise with them. It takes a lot to understand it. being grilled by QE repeatedly with him taking the time out of his day to do so, in my case. Now, I can do that for my audience, and I'm very gracious and thankful to QE that I can now do that off the back of his explanations repeatedly to me, so that I understood it. Well, you know, that's the level you've got to get to. That's why it got a bit of commendation on my part, or for my part, from Quantum Eraser, because that is the standard. If you're going to argue about Coriolis effect, you've got to know what it actually is. And if you're going to start talking about why pendulums are attached to the building and therefore there's no Coriolis, you don't understand it. Just stop arguing about it.
There's two problems here. You're all gone completely off the radar, right? Number one, just to clear up what was being talked about a minute ago. For all that didn't understand it, citations must be supported by demonstration. Otherwise, they're worth absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter what qualifications the person has that wrote the citation. It means nothing if they can't demonstrate it in reality. That's QE's point, right? Very simply.
Repeatable, testable, verifiable. You can't just.
Yeah, hang on. I'm not finished. He's stating it for years. No one sees it outside the panel. No one seems to be getting it. Right. Number one. Number two. You're all completely after going off the radar. If Wolfie is claiming to adjust his plane for the drift that would be caused by what he believes is Coriolis effect, that's caused by a rotating globe, then he also has to be adjusting his plane for the curvature of this globe.
Is it adjusting for the lies in his
You can't claim one thing. You can't just claim one. You simultaneously claim two. Now
that's true.
Them claims to support.
Yep, that's true. But we're just concentrating on the Coriolis part.
Can I circle back to my question? What makes a subject matter expert? Is it a degree? Is it knowledge of the subject? Is it what is it? What makes a subject matter expert? Is it a PhD?
Depends on who you ask.
Layman?
It depends on who you ask, because Fight the Flat Earth thinks that he's a subject matter expert in everything. If you listen to the way he talks, he claims he's done everything. So he essentially becomes Jay from the In-Betweeners, that he's been there, done that, and done everything, right? Does that make him a subject matter expert? No. That makes him a bullshitter. But we have a way to decide. Lewis Hamilton is a subject matter expert in Formula One driving, right? And we're all enthusiastic drivers. We can all drive faster than we should do. Does it make us subject matter experts? Not really, because we don't drive Formula One cars. But you've got to have the skill and the expertise, the knowledge and the applied science to be able to do the thing that you're talking about. Otherwise, you're not doing...
Careful. Applied science. Just the practical
right.
application's good enough, not applied science.
No, I said that intentionally, Nathan, because you said, when I said about the pilots not understanding how the planes work, you said that was absurd, and it's not. Because just because the pilot knows how to fly that particular plane doesn't mean he understands how all the plane works.
Okay,
that's why engineers
okay, I'll take it back and take it on the chin. However, the quality of a pilot is assessed on those standards. In other words, the intricate knowledge of the workings of the plane would define how good a pilot is. So, for instance, if I'm just going to give it you by my citation, if you like. Don't have to like it. It's just my citation. A guy who flies, who does a YouTube channel called Mentor Pilot, has explained this in those terms. So in terms of whether or not they would classify a pilot as above average, below average, is based on that sort of a level of understanding. So when there's a functional error with the craft, that pilot, who has a good understanding of where that air conditioner is physically routed through the plane and why that warning might be as a result of X, Y, and Z being connected to that would make him a better pilot in the eyes of the standards that they lay down because of his advanced knowledge of how the plane works. So when you say they don't necessarily know how the plane works, I'm going to disagree and say that is absurd based on the fact that that is one of the standards they assess them on. So unless you couldn't care less at how good you're a pilot you are and you don't care how the plane works and you just stick there on and press the button. I don't think that ever happens, Anthony. But what do I know? I'm not a pilot. I'm just going on a YouTuber who is. So what do I know?
If it was the case then all Formula One drivers would always have brilliant cars because they are all experts in driving the car. There's no direct connection to flying the plane and knowing how the plane flies, because you don't know all the systems as a pilot. That's what engineers do. And pilots just know
I
how
can't
to
believe my
fly.
ears. There's no connection between knowing how a horse behaves and riding a horse.
All right, so let's make it simple, right? Your PC, you know how your PC works. You use your PC and you're proficient in using your PC. But the minute it stops working, you go, Anthony, my PC's not working. Does that mean that you become an expert PC builder because you use your PC all day? No.
Okay.
You should be.
I already agreed with you on one level. What do you want? More blood? What do you want? Keeping the live show open for this.
Just turn it off and on again.
Yeah.
There you go. You're an expert.
No one answered
Just because
Paul's
the pilot
question.
knows how to fly the plane doesn't mean that he knows how the plane works.
Okay.
I've got to side with. I want to side with. I agree with Tony's point, but in this specific case, i.e., pilots, as demonstrated by what Nathan's just said, it's actually a requirement that bit. It's not just can you loopity-loopy, it's also do you understand it as well, and that is grading of the piloting. So in this particular case, maybe not Formula One, maybe not other things, but in this case, that seems to be part of the
course
training and grading, and what would make you a better pilot. It would be the not just your ability to fly the plane, but also understand it.
Is a comparable for Anthony. Anthony plays video games, and I know this. So if you look at various gamers of notoriety, typically the experts will have an intricate knowledge of the game code, whereas your average Joe might not. So while your average Cessna pilot probably doesn't have a good understanding of how the engine physically works, there's a good chance that your 777 pilot does know how his engine works, because he's an expert in that field, right? I'm hoping to round out this point and end the live show. Got to have a conclusory point to end on, but carry on, whoever.
I watched a great video.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something real quick. I mean, essentially, you can know how something works, right? Like the mechanic, but the mechanic could never tell you what the true essence of flying that plane is like. It takes somebody who's in that hot seat day in and day out to know how that plane maneuvers.
The mechanic has to know how to fly the plane.
What?
No, the mechanic has to know how to fly the plane. Mechanics know how to fly. Airline mechanics know how to fly planes.
I don't think mechanics have wings. I don't think that's the case.
My God, we're going to really go on this tangent right at the end of the live show? Oh, God.
No, let's start a new discussion and stop complaining about it.
You still haven't answered Paul's question.
What makes an expert an expert?
The answer to Paul's question is someone who can explain thoroughly makes an expert. If you can't explain, then you clearly don't understand. Therefore, you are not an expert.
So, okay, let me just test that standard. Let me just test that standard. So, if my mother can explain the intricate details of dentistry to you, you'd trust her as a dentist?
No, but if she could show me the dental extraction she's done, and that she is, maybe without the qualifications, she is capable of doing dental work and showing it you, here's the last root canal I did, then technically her expertise aren't diminished by the lack of qualification. And that goes back to Patrick Moore.
I think that's very true. I mean, I'm no gynecologist, but I'll have a bloody good look at it for you.
Right. So his point was, what everyone's saying is, Paul, demonstrated proficiency in the area of question. That's your answer.
Well said.
Are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!